modern baseball has made some good moves. The pitch clock works. I like the fact they banned the shift. I like some of the adjustments. The ballparks are spectacular almost everywhere around the game now. The game's in a good place in so many ways. But, guys, they might need a new commissioner. We'll get into that topic. The golden at bat, the dumbest idea in baseball history. We'll talk about that. We'll get an ownership update from LaVelle, and we'll do our booze and blues segment later. It's a pretty obvious one to talk about this week that I think these gentlemen will enjoy. This is Chin Music. This is our baseball show at talkwork.com. The lineup is Roy Smalley, former Twins All-Star, current Twins broadcaster, LaVelle E. Neal III, Twins baseball guru, and Star Tribune columnist. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we are presented by OnX Hunt, the OnX family of hunting and fishing apps. We'll tell you more about them later. Thanks also to Minnesota Masonic Charities and Chew Vision Institute. Thanks to you all for listening. Best way to listen to this show or any show you like at the network, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's easy. All right, gentlemen, let's get right to it. And let's start with Roy on this one. The golden at-bat concept. First of all, tell us what it is and then tell us why you hate it.
When I tell you what it is, you'll know why I hate it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Some things are stupid by the very definition. So the golden at bat is a proposal, or at least an idea that's being put forth by our illustrious commissioner to allow a team to, at one point in time in the game, I think it's late inning, 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, to disregard the lineup in terms of who's on deck and who's coming up next, and be able to use anybody you want at that time. And it so you can imagine, the Yankees got the bases loaded and Juan Soto made the last out the inning before, and he's 6 batters away, and then all of a sudden, oh no, he can come back here. And then he's the golden bat. And I think it is as you said, Jim, the stupidest idea I've ever heard. It's like a game show. I mean, they want to turn baseball into a game show. First of all, they're turning it into a stage play anyway. I mean, you can't slide into anybody anywhere. I mean, the game is just being gentrified to the point, people can flip bats and trot around and make all kinds of gestures and all this kind of stuff. So okay, that's fine. It's a stage play now, and we're just gonna, all the actors are gonna play their parts. This is a game show. This is, hey, come on down, Juan Soto, come on down. This is, and the survey said Juan Soto. I mean, this makes me crazy. It makes me absolutely crazy. It turned it into a game show.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. It's funny because inside baseball here, Royce and I were talking earlier this week, and Royce is like, you should write about the golden rule. I said, no, Patrick. If anybody is situated to write about the golden rule, it's you. You take it. I would not do it as well as you are. So we'll be seeing a Patrick Royce golden rule column here soon. LaVelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, the great thing about baseball is those moments where the 6th or 7th or 9th place hitter comes through with some miraculous hit late in games to win the game. A couple examples. I mean, you go back to the playoffs. Being a White Sox fan, I'm still mad that Len Sakata, who was batting .063 in his career against the White Sox, hit a postseason home run against him in the 1983 playoffs.
I was actually an Orioles fan back then. It was before I started covering professional sports. I used to be a dopey fan, and that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Right. And then World Series, I can't remember. I want to say 87. Tom Lawless of the Cardinals. Yep. It was like a 210 hitter. He hits a home run and does the first ever bat flip, in the postseason. Little stuff like that would be erased if the manager is allowed to protect himself from himself and set up a pinch hitter in those situations. Of course, Twins fans would complain that Ron Gardenhire probably would pitch hit Mauer in some situations that he would hit into a double play. But we all know that wouldn't be true. To to me, the batting order is sacred. One of the great things about baseball is the daily water cooler discussions about who's batting leadoff, who's the cleanup hitter, who's batting third. When lineups are posted online, there's got people who love the batting order that day and people who hate the batting order that day. All of a sudden, this gives the manager an out card for not having the right batter in the right spot in the lineup at the most important time of the game. I just don't like it. And I like the aspect of someone unheralded coming through in the clutch to help your team win, which happens more often than not.
Okay, that's a fair take, LaVelle, but I prefer Roy just hating everything about it. You were actually trying to apply logic to an illogical situation. Let's not do that. Come on, man. I'm going to be the contrarian here. I like the golden at bat. I think you use the golden at bat. You give each team 5 outs and 4 strikes per at bat, and let's turn it into Arena League football. Let's have 100. Turn it into cricket. Let's go. Let's have 3-day-long games that end 122 to 118. If you're going to do the golden rule, let's just make it cricket
and stop and have tea at the end of each day.
Of course. What could be more?
And what's with the absolute denigration of foul territory? I mean, why should they be discriminated? Why should foul territory be discriminated against? Anything that lands on the field of play, in play. I mean, who cares? There's no foul territory. There's no foul lines. You hit it and run. It doesn't have to be all the way to cricket, but I mean, there's just no sense in discriminating against fair or foul. I mean,
so you're saying I could sacrifice by just butting toward the camera well and allowing runners to go for base.
LaVelle, I think for a sacrifice bunt, it just goes the way of the intentional walk. You just say, okay, we moved him over. You just point. He says, I'm the manager points and says, I'm bunting. Clearly it would have been, we don't want to go through. This is not fun to watch people bunt. We want to see people hit. So let's not do that anymore. Let's just move him to second base. When the manager says we sacrificed there, then just move him over. The whole thing is stupid. And I mean, just the idea. I don't mind changing the game in ways that don't drastically affect what the game has been for forever. A great example of that is a relief pitcher having to pitch to 3 guys. You can't just Terry Francona your way out of an inning. Bringing in parade of relief pitchers. It speeded up the game, and it made it actually, to LaVelle's point, more managerially strategic and fun. To watch that. And the pitch clock, I don't have a problem with pitch clock. Why not? I mean, if that had been done in, the technology was there in 1928 with Dizzy Dean or something, I would love to hear what old Diz would have said about it, but it would have been, it would have been just fine. That makes the game better, not totally different. And when you start making the game totally different for stupid reasons, then I think I'm going to go back to that great line from Bad News Bears and say, Commissioner ought to take the golden at bat and stick it where the sun don't shine.
I don't know. Again, I think we need to be open-minded here. How about, if we're going to have a golden at bat, how about a trap door near second base? And you get to use the trap door once a game. You don't like the other team stealing, hit the trap door, runner disappears.
No, I think, what I think they should do? If you don't want the runner stealing, I think what you should be able to do is have a circle of fire halfway between the baseline, and the guy's got to run through fire.
Okay, well, I like that.
I would like to see the trap door under the pitcher's mound. That would speed up pitching changes.
Oh, I like that. Or how about, I got a better idea. How about a Star Trek transporter room on the mound? So we don't have to watch the guy walk in and take up our valuable time. You just transport him onto the mound.
That could work.
Yeah, I like it. As a matter of fact,
I like Ron Duran's entrance in the 9th inning. No, I wouldn't want to get rid of that.
Yeah, since relievers finally started running in from the bullpen, then it's not so bad. There used to be, when I was playing, guys, where ballparks didn't have the car or the little baseball shaped golf cart. Guys would come in and they'd walk in and it was like it took them forever.
It took them forever. And actually, I will say that innovation I would like to bring back. I loved the little golf carts with the huge baseball helmet, and it looked like a guy, somebody was sitting in a toy, and I just loved that thing.
Well, the best thing was when when in Milwaukee when they had a bullpen car, and they would drive in. When I was with the Yankees, the bullpen car driver, this poor kid, had to bring in Goose Gossage in a big situation, and Goose gets in the car and is supposed to drive around. He comes in from right field and supposed to drive around in front of the past the Milwaukee dugout on the first base side and let Goose out on the third base side where our dugout was, right in front of our dugout. And Goose made the kid stop in front of the Milwaukee dugout. He got out, slammed the door, told the guy, as soon as I get out, you get the hell out of here. And so Goose gets out, slams the door. The guy almost peels dirt, trying to get out of the way. Goose faces the Milwaukee dugout and does a Hulk Hogan muscle pose scream at the Milwaukee bench. Then he goes to the mound. His first pitch, warm up pitch, he throws on purpose. He throws about 10 feet over the pitcher's head, just fires 100 miles an hour at the screen behind the plate. And then he goes, "Okay, let's go. I'm ready."
Oh, I love it.
Didn't someone bring back the pitching cart a few years ago? And didn't Fernando Rodney enter a game on it when he's pitching for the Twins?
I have a vague recollection of that. I'll have to look it up. I did not prepare myself for that question.
Well, we didn't know where this was headed
you
today.
didn't prepare yourself for my Goose story either. But
no, I
that's
didn't.
The way they happen.
Speaking of professional wrestling, how about this for a rule that's better than the golden rule? How about once a game, if you invoke the name Kent Herbeck, you can lift an opposing runner off the base and get him out.
That would Herbeck loved for that rule to be enacted, but he would argue that he did not pick up Ron Gant.
He would argue that, but he wouldn't argue with a straight face.
So and if we're talking about the World Series, the '87 World Series, then and how that could impact the game, then I think if you got a really speedy runner on first base, if you invoke Lonnie Smith, you can if he's going from first toward third, at some point in time between second and third, the runner has to fall down. You say, okay, we're going to Lonnie Smith this guy. And then if he's trying to score from first or trying to run from first to third, at some point in time between second and third, he's got to fall down.
I just found it. June 12th, 2018, Fernando Rodney was with the Twins. The Tigers had a bullpen cart, and he rode in on the bullpen cart to face his former team.
I love it. I love the bullpen car. As long as it has what looks like a massive toy helmet on it, I'm all for the bullpen car.
Absolutely.
And to get back to LaVelle's point about how, you never know what bottom of the order hitter or pinch hitter might end up being a lifetime hero for getting that one big hit. I mean, can you imagine a baseball world where the golden rule was used and nobody in Boston ever had the reason to use the phrase Bucky bleeping Dent?
You're right. But there's no way Bucky's hitting in that situation if they had the golden bat rule.
All right.
No, exactly.
We'll come back with some more anger, but we'll change subject slightly. We'll also do our Booze and Blues segment. I have something I really want to talk about in that later on. A reminder, we're coming from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We are presented by Onyx Hunt. Here's more about Aquarius Home Services.
Hey there, it's Scott from Aquarius Home Services in Connecticut, wishing you a happy and healthy holiday season. If worry-free water is on your wish list, here's a bundle of a deal. 25% off a Connecticut non-electric water softener and K5 drinking water system. Enjoy spotless dishes, sparkling fixtures, and purified drinking water from your own faucet. As your independent authorized Connecticut dealer, schedule your free water analysis today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
So we are sponsored by Onyx Hunt, but this one's more about fishing. Ice fishing is here. It's time to hit the frozen water with Onyx Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice. Thanks also to a company that does great work in Minnesota. I keep hearing great things from my friends about it. Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
And speaking of our friends, John Krasinski wants to know what a great experience he had with True Vision Institute.
Yeah, True Vision in Bloomington. I was talking to someone at the Timberwolves game against the Hornets, and they were asking me about it. And they had also had LASIK surgery as well. And it was, the term that we both have used, and I've used it on the show, is life changing. It really is. And you're going to roll your eyes at it. Maybe if you're wearing contacts and eyeglasses, you're going to say, yeah, right. I did the same thing. I was skeptical of it. I was like, it can't be that good. But I went to True Vision. I visited with the nicest, most friendly staff there that put me through the paces, got me to the right answer and the right option for my vision correction, and then got me to Dr. Chu, who did an unbelievable job with the surgery itself. It does make your life so much easier, not having to go in every year, every 2 years for new glasses and new contacts, spending hundreds of dollars, getting the eye exam, trying to find what's the fashionable frames nowadays. All of those things. It's a headache. And I do not have that anymore because I got LASIK at True Vision. It took me not even half of a day to recover from the surgery. And by the time I woke up the next morning, I was seeing clearly and crisply, and everything was great. So go into True Vision or go to truevision.com to set up your consultation and tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you.
All right, gentlemen. Doe did a nice piece on MLB.com about potential trades. He broke it down in an interesting way. He basically said there are kind of three sets of trades the Twins could consider this winter. One is guys you obviously wouldn't mind moving on from and saving the money, like Vasquez and Paddock. Then there's established starting pitchers. If you think you have enough depth, you might get good returns on, which is Ober and Ryan. And then there's the idea of selling high on Duran and Jax. And I don't think he was necessarily espousing any of these. He's just throwing out different philosophical possibilities. Do any of those appeal to any of you? Let's hear it from LaVelle first.
As someone who covered the Twins for 20-something years and watched them sell low on players multiple times, selling high, I think, would be the best use of their resources. So as much as I would not hate to see him go, if someone wanted to give the Twins a nice, tidy return for Duran before he gets too expensive to keep, and if it brings back multiple players, I would consider it. It's funny because that would probably force someone like Griffin Jax to be a closer when Griffin Jax would prefer to be extended and become a starter, But I would try to deal from a strength and try to deal someone whose value is high instead of moving a Paddock who's not going to get you much, or moving Vasquez, who I don't know who's going to take that salary on. The Twins probably have to eat part of it. And would that be an effective way of dealing with that situation? I'm not sure. But moving someone like Duran before he hits free agency and gets expensive to keep, that could be a way for them to add even more talent to the roster. I'm arguing against myself here because I don't know how much from a payroll standpoint that helps their case, because they do need to move money. Maybe if you can find someone, you take Durant. If you want Joan Duran, you also have to take Vasquez with you. Maybe that's the way to work it out that way. But it's interesting. I've come to the realization that the Twins are going to do something from the trade standpoint to free up some money so they can fill in holes elsewhere on their roster. Maybe that's the way of doing it.
What do you think, Roy?
Well, if you trade a starting pitcher, Griffin Jackson's got to be a starter. And if you trade Duran, Griffin Jackson is your closer. So,
Right.
and so, I mean, that's just the way it would, for me, that's the way it would have to be. The closer route, I am fine with. I think there's a matter of time and leverage situations that a guy's got to go through. I mean, Jax has closer stuff. I think we saw that. What I like about his closer stuff better than Duran's is that he's got a better idea day in, day out of where the ball's going. And Duran, for me, is too much. I got to throw all three pitches that I have right at the middle of the plate, the middle of the strike zone, and hope it works. 'Cause he can't. I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, if you're going to throw him a curveball first pitch, and you got to throw it on the outside part," there's no such thing. He doesn't have the ability yet, and maybe he will develop it to say, "I know I can throw this pitch on the outside corner or close enough to have it be competitive." Whereas Griffin Jax has 4 pitches now, all plus, and he's got a much better idea of where the ball is going, and he's got much better command of 4 pitches than Duran has of 3. So I'm okay with Griffin Jax as a closer because I think he's gone through the fire now, the baptism of fire. He's had enough leverage situations where he knows he's going to either win or lose the game. And sometimes it was in the 8th inning and sometimes the 9th, but it doesn't really matter. You have to be, in those situations enough time with your stuff to be able to then ascend to closer role. And I think he can do that. As far as him wanting to be a starter, everybody wants to be a starter rather than a relief pitcher that's not the closer because you can make more money. You're a good closer in the major leagues right now. You can make a ton of dough. So I think that would be agreeable to him. But there's really only 2 ways to go. I mean, if you for right now, if you trade one of your starters, I think Griffin Jackson's got to start.
I'd rather keep the starters. Another thing about moving Jax to closer, Cole Sands had a sneaky good year last year. He may be at the point where you could trust him in some more high leverage situations in the 7th and 8th innings if Jax becomes your closer. So that's another way they can get their arms around this if they need to move Durant.
They did that already a bit, LaVelle, with Cole Sands down the stretch, and he was real good, and there's a reason for it. I mean, that stuff is real. He's got velocity, he's got movement, velocity and movement on the fastball. The splitter is real good now, and he throws the ball over the plate. So that was one of the reasons. I'm glad you brought that up. It was one of the reasons I wanted to say that if they're going to try to make a big splash and get a lot in return, then I think moving Duran potentially with what the bullpen looks like with Griffin Jackson as the closer, and especially if tell me the right-hander that's hurt all the time. It's got electric stuff because I've lost my mind. I'm sorry?
Brock Stewart.
Yeah, Brock Stewart. I mean, especially if he comes back with any kind of ability. So, and I think it would be easier to get some additional bullpen. And then you got Topa. Easier to get some additional bullpen help without a lot of pain than it would be to get the guys you can get for Durant. So I think that would make sense.
Who is Justin Topa? Does he even exist? I don't even know what he looks like.
He's a pitcher I made up in my head one time, and it just wouldn't it be cool if we had a guy that had this kind of stuff?
Who was the guy Sports Illustrated made up? Finch.
Yep.
What was his name?
Sid Finch.
Sid Finch. Yes.
Sid Finch.
Yes. I think Topa's on the same All-Star team as Sid Finch.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, let's get to our booze and blues segment. Sometimes we have to get creative. I don't think we have to get creative with this one. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I watched the Yacht Rock documentary, DOCK documentary on HBO Max, whatever they're calling it these days. And I expected it to be funny, and it is funny in some spots. I actually think it's beautiful. It's just this beautiful encapsulation of this movement that nobody knew was a movement. And now you look back at it and you realize that all these great musicians were playing on each other's records and just kind of fell into this groove where they kind of got into this light rock vibe in Southern California, and it ends up producing something that we now make fun of. But really, when you listen to the music and you see who the artists were, you go, God, this is actually, it's not exactly my favorite genre, but it was kind of beautiful. Have either of you guys seen it yet?
No, I haven't. Not. Where is it?
It's on Max or HBO or whatever they're calling that these days.
HBO Max? Okay.
Really, really. So we'll table a full discussion on it until you guys have seen it. Really
What's it
well
called?
done. I knew a lot of the stuff they presented. I had forgotten some of the stuff, but what it really does is it paints this picture of all these guys, like Toto, were all these studio musicians, and they were brilliant musicians. They played on everybody's records. And then they said, well, we're playing together all the time. Let's just start putting out records. And they have having all these hits, But they played with everybody. Michael McDonald played on everybody's hits. He joins the Doobie Brothers. Doobie Brothers, one of the great bands of all time before they had Michael McDonald. McDonald joins them, and he transforms everything they do. I don't know. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it way more than I expected to. It also reminded me that Christopher Cross, who, the icon of light, almost wimpy 70s, 80s music, what people don't know about him is he was a monster rock guitarist. He sat in for Richie Blackmore once. And Richie Blackmore, he played as great as anybody. But then he had his hits playing this light pop stuff, so that's the direction he took.
That's
really, really funny. What's it called again?
Yacht Rock.
Yacht Rock.
And Roy, you'll appreciate this. Steely Dan is highlighted in it as well. And
Donald Fagen's in this?
Pardon me?
Donald Fagen's in this?
Steely Dan. Well, you know what? There are some Steely Dan songs that are considered yacht rock. I was cruising through that whole idea about yacht rock one time, is just online, and the top 30 yacht rock songs of all time, whatever it was, different lists like that. And so some Steely Dan songs like Black Cow was on there. Hey 19 was on there.
Time Out of Mind?
What's that?
What about Time Out of Mind? Would that qualify as yacht rock? That's a Steely Dan hit song.
I don't know. It's got to be the Steely Dan songs that are kind of jazz infused,
yes.
but mellow. That's what I've come to learn about how they define Steely Dan yacht rock. How they put them on the list. It's got to be it's got to be the soft jazz version of Steely Dan.
That's exactly right. So the greatest thing about the Yacht Rock documentary, and Roy, you'll really appreciate this, and it'll probably this will make you really want to watch this. Toward the end of the documentary, they have one of the producers calling Donald Fagen, and they had a recording of the phone call. And the producer calls him up and says, "Yeah, hey, we're producing this documentary about music in your time, and we'd love to be able to sit down and talk to you." And Fagen says, "Well, what genre is that?" And the producer says, "Yacht rock." And Fagen goes, "Oh, yacht rock. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you go bleep yourself?"
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no way that Fagen would ever succumb to that. He obviously would have hated the whole deal. But the thing that was great about about Steely Dan, and I think it's a travesty that they put some of those songs, they classify them as yacht rock and play them on those stations, because they were really good. I mean, so here's Steely Dan. You are in a elite school for the arts, in this case, musicianship, and you're jazz aficionados, and so you're a bass player and guitar player, and then you're also the other guy is a keyboard player, and you want to play jazz. You're learning how to play that, and then they break out and they say, okay, we're going to take this kind of jazz, popular thing that we kind of like, and we're going to just get the best guitarists in the world to come in and play these riffs in the middle of our songs, and then we'll get back to what we were doing. I mean, how can that not be fantastic?
Oh, it is fun. But that's one reminder of this documentary. It starts off the whole premise that Yacht Rock has become kind of this joke, but then the producers are like, but these were great musicians. And so they actually are trying to honor these people, and they show what Steely Dan, they really do a good job of showing what Steely Dan was all about. And as you said, Steely Dan fired like 100 of the greatest musicians who ever lived because they weren't quite good enough to play in their records. I mean, you had to be Larry Carlton or Steve Lukather or Skunk Baxter. You had to be great to make it on one of their records. So they're actually, when they get to the Steely Dan stuff, they're really kind of highlighting how great all these musicians were. It's just that some of them, to make a living, had to play the light stuff that would get played on the radio.
Wow. I'm sitting next to my old CD cabinet right now, and I'm looking over. I know I got Steely Dan CDs in there somewhere. So I'm starting to think about all the great music he's put out through the years. I didn't realize how much of a collaboration it was.
Oh, yeah, it was. And everybody played on everybody else's records. And Toto ended up playing on, like, the Thriller album. The guys from Toto ended up playing on that. Steve Lukather, the Toto lead guitarist, he ended up playing like all those riffs on Michael Jackson's album. So they were all in this
except for Beat It. You know who played that?
Yeah, that was Eddie Van Halen. Yes,
that was Van Halen. Yeah, yes. That was just phenomenal.
Yes, no doubt. All right, so you now both have a homework assignment, and we'll talk more about Yacht Rock and maybe some favorite tequilas or bourbons next week. For this week, good stuff, gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who listens. Check out all the shows at talknorth.com, and we'll get back to you next week.